Today we have Dan Allaby, who is the host of Tech Talk. He is Avnet's Director of Cloud Offerings at Avnet Cloud Solutions. We're also joined by Matthew, and Matt, if I butcher your name, I'm sorry, Matthew Cassar, is that right?
No, that's not right. It's Cassar. It's okay.
Cassar. So it actually sounds like it looks. That's my mistake. So Matt is the co-founder of SherWeb, and we're really glad to have him here today. And then Brian Young, Solutions Architect at Avnet Cloud Solutions. So with that quick intro, I'm going to hand the floor over to Dan Allaby to get us started.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. And just echoing the welcome to Matt. Matt, really appreciate you joining us today. SherWeb has recently been recognized as a leader in the industry around Microsoft and some of the productivity suite solutions in a cloud offering perspective. So really appreciate you joining today. Maybe before we jump in, a little bit on the past session. So if you're new to the session today, thanks very much for joining and welcome. And also if you're returning, appreciate you coming back. And we've been doing these sessions. We're on number 4 right now. We've changed the format a little bit this time. We were running through VoIP sessions before, a little hard to work out some of the technology glitches, so we moved to a hybrid scenario here where you're able to join in via analog or VoIP to participate. So just past sessions, we've talked initially around some infrastructure-centric cloud solutions, storage, infrastructure as a service across a number of the providers. How is the technology deployed, and what are some of the cost models? What are some of the specific services? And then the last session, we actually went deeper into Amazon Web Services particularly, and talked a bit about the services within Amazon, and again, how they're costed, how they're architected. Today, we want to talk a little and focus more some of the topics around hosted exchange. And given that we have Matt, really want Matt to share with us some things he's seeing around the industry, perspectives on the market, and where Microsoft's heading. A little bit on the secret sauce from SherWeb, because certainly as a leader, would love to hear his perspectives on that front. Some of the tools available around the solution, and specific services and architecture focus to where SherWeb is currently and where they're going. So a little bit of how we'll approach the day. And again, as you're listening to the topic, feel free, as Scott mentioned, to hit host and presenter under the chat window with questions. Some of these questions we'll actually take on as part of the topics we're addressing, and in some cases, Brian may actually just respond to you. If you have a quick question, you want a quick answer, we can give you a quick answer over chat. We'll do that as well. So one of the things that we've changed, besides the basic technology format, is we've introduced a little bit of a fun, interactive approach here. There is a Twitter question of the day, and we'll do this every session. This is an interesting topic. So the Twitter question of the day today is, and a very broad topic in some regards, do you still think that security is a significant inhibitor to customers adopting cloud solutions? And if so, why? And in terms of responding to that, we'd love to hear your answers and feedback. You can tweet to at Avnet Cloud Ready, and you can use the hashtag Avnet Tech Talk for your comments and feedback. You know, I'll kick it over to Matt, but certainly from my perspective, primarily I would put security concerns into 3 buckets. I'd say certainly data at rest and in transit, ownership of the data, so access, control, and integration, and compliance at the high level are some of the things that kind of come to mind, you know, when I hear about security. And also, some of it is perception versus reality, and so that's an element of this as well. So certainly there are concerns, but I think some of them, the concerns are more perception driven than reality. So I don't know, Matt, maybe you can make some comments on when you get that question, and I'm sure you do, what are some of the things that you talk about?
Yeah, so clearly security is an extremely important factor. If you look at the question, it says, do you think that it is an inhibitor to customers adopting cloud solutions? So the question in itself is pretty interesting, because if you look at what customers look for into a service provider, one of the top, if not always, the top concern or the top criteria that they'll look for is security. So it remains a very, very crucial and important factor for customers when they look at different cloud service providers. However, what's very interesting is that I remember, I think a few months ago, I did look at, there was a survey that was done, I think directly by Microsoft, around security, and most businesses that answered the survey said that security is the #1 concern, but 80% of the businesses that did answer the survey said that although it is one of the top criteria that they'll look for in a service provider, 80% thought that they could get better security through a service cloud provider than by doing it internally. So I don't necessarily think that it's an inhibitor for customers to adopt the cloud, since most of them seems to be aware or seems to understand, and obviously there's always exceptions, but the survey said 80% that they can get better security through the cloud. But it does remain a very, very important factor and criteria, and I think it should be also. So it's something they look at, but most of them seem to understand now that they can get the right security through a cloud provider.
That's interesting. I think it seems that obviously as the industry progresses, there's more and more credibility being built around the cloud service providers as the market matures, and that I think makes sense in terms of why.
Yes, and customers are becoming more sophisticated. So back to your point now, instead of just asking questions around, will my data be secure, or is it firewall protected, which are usually basic questions. Now they'll ask more questions around the compliance, like you mentioned. Will I own my data? What type of encryption can you provide me? What type of I need to be compliant to be able to meet this or that regulation. So how can you guys help me be secure and meet compliance regulations? Or they'll ask us, are you guys certified? Are you SAS 70 Type 2 certified, which is one of the security certifications that we have and that most serious cloud providers do have in the industry. So there's a level of sophistication that I think end customers have reached over the past few years. So security remains, once again, a top concern, but you see more and more good questions being asked, and it'll just allow the end customers to choose the right provider.
Awesome. Yeah. Before we move on, Brian, just from kind of you're working with our partners and customers every day, I'm curious, in the areas of sort of data security, access security, and compliance, is there one of those three that, from your perspective, comes up more than others? I'm just curious.
Yeah, Dan, good question. I think there's two areas. One is definitely the compliance piece. To what Matthew was speaking to, specifically in the healthcare space, we see that quite a bit. The other area is kind of the management piece. How does a user get provisioned, and how does the client's IT staff deal with that? So there's the actually access control. So from the control panel, or the portal, if you will, there's the security pieces around that. So those are the most common areas that I see.
Yeah, for sure. And certainly compliance and data security, obviously there's an overlap there. Needless to say, a lot of the compliance driven requirements.
Well, yeah, and I'll just follow up a little bit on that, is that email in its by nature is traveling over the wire. And so everyone, when you send an email to someone, there could be sensitive data within that message, and that's where people are really concerned about email, much differently than like a database type structure or things like that.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting that a lot of the compliance. Before we close off, that triggered another thought. A lot of the compliance and regulatory processes that are out there don't necessarily cover that data in transit. They're more focused on data at rest and so anyways, that's an interesting perspective because certainly you got to get the information there.
And Dan, if I may add, there are solutions that do cover this, but it's it's really finding the right balance between ease of use and protecting the data that's in transit. And there are a number of solutions available, and I can touch on that point a bit later on because it's something we're working at SherWeb, at making available for the end customers. But there are solutions available out there. But once you start implementing those solutions within the email packages, usually it disrupts the user experience. So it's a huge challenge between email encryption and making sure that the data is secure and also not affecting too much the user experience.
Awesome. Yeah. I touched on this at the beginning, just sort of shifting gears a little bit. And again, it's awesome to have you here today, Matt. When you look at some of the services that you provide, it's interesting to see the cyclic motion, and I feel like in the last several months we're really seeing an acceleration in adoption, and it's certainly not the first wave of that, but I think it comes in waves, at least from what we're seeing, and some of that you could certainly comment on, and some of that's being driven probably by Microsoft and other drivers there. But certainly wanted to highlight that you recently have been recognized as, I think, the #1 host exchange provider, I believe, globally.
Yeah.
And so that's an awesome achievement. So maybe talk a little bit about, for everyone on the call, SherWeb's architecture, kind of high level. What's it look like, and what are some of the core services that you're providing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the core services from a Microsoft technology standpoint are Exchange. So clearly the email solution in itself is at the core of all of our productivity packages. And then around the core email solution, then there's a number of services that we add, such as SharePoint for collaboration. We've been getting, there's more and more traction for SharePoint, especially since the 2013 version is out. Lync is also gaining more and more momentum. I would say that customers are, number one is definitely email as the killer app. Then customers are usually, more a bit on the higher end of customers. They'll clearly want some type of intranet collaboration tools, and SharePoint is really one of the top, if not the top solution out there for those customers. And Lync, we're seeing more and more demand for Lync online, which is also part of the suite. And that's clearly on the Microsoft side. As part of the package that we're making available for the channel and the end customers, there are also non-Microsoft components, which are online backup, desktop backup, also compliant features such as encryption, archiving, these are all solutions that we've fully integrated into our suite of productivity. We've fully integrated this with all of the Microsoft technologies, with our portal, and all of those are available through the channel to end customers. And we're also working on other neat stuff that should be coming out within the next month or so.
You know, just on the SharePoint side, I mean, we could probably have a long conversation around where SharePoint sits and in the market and where it's heading. And clearly, you know, it's an integral part of a lot of end customer infrastructures and architectures, and very tightly woven into Microsoft Fabric, so brings a lot of benefit that way. Also, though, certainly it's being defined, I think, and I'd love to get your comments on this, as more of an intranet, I'll call it, set of tools for collaboration, for exchange of information, for presentation of information. It's intersecting with a lot of public tools that do some similar things. Just general thoughts, comments around that in terms of how SharePoint is evolving in its role in a lot of customer environments.
Yeah, I think it's becoming, it's always been a document management, a document sharing tool, but especially with the 2013 version, the biggest step in the from the 2010 version to the new SharePoint is it's really becoming more social. There's a lot more of a Facebook-like features around it, and it's really now that was the one major step from Microsoft when they launched the SharePoint 2013, is to make sure that yes, there is going to be document management pretty much the same way that 2010 and the previous versions did it. Yes, there are still going to be discussion boards. The experience will be enhanced, like they've modernized the UI. The user experience is far superior, but I think the direction they're taking with the product is really to make it a social experience for enterprises. So they want people to be able to comment on the work that people are doing. People that work on specific projects have an idea of how many people have actually viewed the certain documents and so on. So basically, they're making it more and more social, and I think the marketplace is responding very well to that, because SharePoint is it's one of the fastest growing cloud product in the productivity world. So it's good.
Yeah, it's interesting that to that point, I think in some of our infrastructure as a service provider relationships, I know that we oftentimes, and we focus on application hosting and management. So even from a hosting point of view, not from a software as a service perspective, we have a focus and options available, around SharePoint. And it, from all the things we've heard, it actually continues to be the #1, I believe, hosted application in cloud infrastructure. So certainly that echoes, some of the comments that you made as well.
Well, and Dan, this is Brian. The idea of the cloud being you can stand it up in the middle of the month and shut it down at the end of the month. And what we're finding is that people don't necessarily see that as an easy option. And so cloud, especially hosted SharePoint, is an excellent way for folks to, on a short-term project, they can stand up a collaboration portal, if you will, SharePoint portal, and do what you guys have been discussing around collaboration, exchanging documents, formal, control there, and commenting, and even setting up notifications that someone's, modified that document. But the idea is that folks can pay for the time that they use the portal. It's that cloud aspect to where a lot of folks think that SharePoint is on-premise infrastructure and is, very takes a long time to set up and to configure and such. But in fact, the offering that we're talking about here is very easy and very easy to consume from a monetary perspective, but also from a setup perspective.
I think one of the challenges that I've certainly heard, just staying on the SharePoint topic for a second, is, and you touched on some of these just now, Brian, but the capacity management challenges around SharePoint tend to be one of the factors that I think IT operations struggles with, certainly in bigger environments. So there's a lot of dynamic spinning up of project data and just keeping up with the storage requirements for some customers. At least from the feedback we've had from our customers, there's a bit of that, and that's one of the compelling reasons why people are looking to outsource on the SharePoint side, either to cloud infrastructure or all the way to full software as a service, like with SherWeb. Matt, did you hear any of that as well? Like, is that?
Oh yeah, that's 100% what we're seeing. And let's say you're an IT department in an enterprise. You set up a SharePoint site for the entire company. It's let's say 10,000 employees. There's no way to be 100% sure of how much, what kind of adoption you're going to have with SharePoint throughout the business. So there's no way of knowing to what extent project teams will use SharePoint, how much data they're going to put out there. So in terms of capacity planning, being in the cloud is a huge advantage because you can start with an amount, and then if, for example, 6 months down the line, a year down the line, the enterprise, like the marketing department, for example, doesn't use it as much as you expected, well, you can simply diminish the amount of storage that you've provisioned. And if, on the other hand, demand is huge, people are putting all of their documents on there, they're moving more and more projects, you have the opportunity to just extend and provision more space, more sites, and it's really a great solution.
And by the way, I saw, just looking at some questions that had come in. Maybe we can hit this one while we're still on the SharePoint side. How's the cost of setting up a SharePoint collaboration portal determined? Yeah, this is an interesting one. I'll take a. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
Well, yeah, it's definitely by what Matthew was talking about. It's capacity, and so if you will, how many gigabytes of storage will you need? And that's what Matthew was talking about. That if you have low adoption, you might have overshot your capacity. If you have high adoption, you might have undershot it. The idea here is that the costs that we've put the cost of the packages are by capacity. So it's basically very simple to determine. And
I think that there's two key pieces of cost, and Matt, definitely jump in here too. The infrastructure side, right, is certainly one element, and that's certainly cloud solutions will help you normalize that cost better and create more predictability in the cost. But I challenge probably honestly the bigger cost is more around how to integrate it, how to serve up a lot of the information around SharePoint. And I think that's the piece where a lot of organizations get sideways. It's a great tool. It's got a lot of capabilities. It does a lot more than file collaboration, right? But it takes a lot of energy that translates to cost to deploy that. And so I don't know, Matt, what's your comments?
Yeah, I would agree with that statement also. But that's a fact for most software. So whether it's SharePoint, any CRM solution, even Outlook. I remember reading at one point that Outlook, for example, with Exchange, on average, people were using about 10% of the features that were available. So, if you really want to get the most from SharePoint, there is definitely a cost associated with training, making sure that users within the business use all the features beyond normal document management that's been there forever. It's the most natural feature of SharePoint. But one of the good things, though, that I think is happening with SharePoint is that by making it more like most people out there, few rare exceptions, but have been using Facebook. And now, if you go within SharePoint, well, a lot of the user experience, a lot of the UI is made in such a way that very intuitively users will use the SharePoint features and start using it to its full potential.
So Dan, just to be clear, I understand that there's a if you think of the actual packages that we've developed in SharePoint and the price points for the capacities behind those, that's the core cost element, if you want to look at it that way. But if you look at it like an onion, if that's the core, yes, there's layers as you go farther out around what you and Matthew talked about around implementing the actual SharePoint site. So to the idea that the cost of setting up a SharePoint site, absolutely, there's all the due diligence around that core. But I wanted to make clear that our Avnet Cloud Ready website does give you the answers to the core costing of the SharePoint capacities.
Right. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit. Matt, from SherWeb's perspective, again, being a leader in this industry, where is Microsoft going? This is maybe a crystal ball thing, but how is Microsoft evolving?
Well, I don't know, Dan. Did you see the big news this morning?
Yeah.
So Steve Ballmer is retiring. So I think it'll depend on who we have as a CEO.
Right.
But putting that aside, and clearly Microsoft is going to the cloud. They're putting all of their software. Okay, so I'll give you an example. If you go back 8 years ago, 7 years ago, when we initially got into the hosted Exchange space, Microsoft Exchange, as a pure standalone product, was not made for the cloud. So what we did is we took the software, we played with it, we added our secret sauce, we added some programming, we added our provisioning system, we tweaked the Active Directory, we integrated all of that to allow us to take what we believe was the #1 email and collaboration system, but to cloud enable it and allow us to serve the market. So that was about 8 years ago. Since then, what Microsoft has done is that they're taking each and every one of their software, their enterprise software, so Exchange, SharePoint, CRM, I think they're going to take eventually the entire Dynamics suite, and making sure that each and every single one of those is made to be fully available as a cloud service. And that's what we see with our interaction with them. So we've been now, so for example, one of the reasons we won the hosting partner of the year is with what we've done on the technical side. So we've been now for quite a few years now. I think for at least a good 5 years, we've been part of the Microsoft TAP program for Microsoft Exchange. We were a part of the program for the 2010 version and now the most recent version of 2013. And when we were working with Microsoft, the reason they wanted us as part of the TAP program is they said, we really like what you've done for the past 5 years with Exchange and how you've been providing it to your end customers. And now we want to work with you on future versions of Microsoft Exchange so that natively our software will be more cloud-friendly. So I think clearly, to use their own sentence, they're all in with the cloud, and I think that we'll see them, putting everything available for hosters.
It's interesting that, and from an Avnet point of view, we've seen, it's no secret that obviously the sort of the evolution is more ease of service, as a service, and we're seeing that move in, quite frankly, most all of our suppliers, either with their software lines or their infrastructure. So it's kind of interesting to see how this is progressing. I say all that, if I look at Microsoft, there's kind of two fundamental sort of elements to their strategy in play. Obviously, the whole move to an as-a-service model from a software point of view is one big play that, as you had commented, Matt, that's in motion. On the infrastructure side, I find there's some interesting things going on with Azure. And what I'm seeing is Microsoft was initially very software-centric all across the board. They're fairly purist in that area, and when Azure first came out, it was more about building a PaaS platform for the evolution of their software as a service model, and to also facilitate further integration of Microsoft software technology into customers. It's kind of moving towards, or at least this is my observation, moving towards a standalone strategy to be able to step up to the plate around the infrastructure as a service model for customers, competing with a lot of the other leaders in the industry on that front. Maybe do you have a perspective on that? Do you see that? First of all, do you agree with that in terms of that's where it's going? Any comments?
Yeah, I agree. They're investing heavily, like you said, with Azure and similar solutions of theirs to step up and to compete with other, whether it's maybe VMware, OpenStack. There's a number of solutions out there that were available on the market way before Microsoft, and they've been catching up. But now they're really investing quite a bit on catching up and even surpassing most of the solutions that are currently available. So yeah, I agree.
You talked a little bit about the secret sauce. So putting me on the spot a little bit, what do you see as the secret sauce? A little bit of your perspective on what SherWeb is really bringing to this, and why, I guess even more directly, what were some of the elements you feel that were relevant to you guys becoming number one awarded that?
Well, there's a number. Okay, so number one clearly is integration. So clearly being able to integrate each and every single one of these solutions together. So whether they're Microsoft, but even integration with non-Microsoft solutions and making those easily available to end customers is clearly part of the secret sauce. So clearly when you want to look at productivity, you don't want too many headaches when you want to provision an email system, and then whether day one you want an email, and 6 months down the road you want a SharePoint, and if we want to add compliance and then remove it, and so on and so forth. You really want to make that as easy as possible without too many headaches, without any technical difficulties. You want that, you really want to integrate everything to make sure that the customer experience is top. So that integration is part of it. Also, one of the reasons we won the Worldwide Hosting Award is really we've always been at the cutting edge of the technology that's been available from Microsoft. So we've always used the latest virtualization technologies, the monitoring tools. We've been using those now for 3 generations. With the 2007 suite, 2010, 2013. Like I said before, we've been part of the TAP program, working with Microsoft and making sure that the software that they were going to make available on the market really are available for hosters in a proper way, so that we can, deliver the service to the end customers. And also, on certain customer deployments, we've been able to integrate with workloads that they were running internally. So, and we rarely see that on the lower end. So let's say it's a smaller customer. Usually they'll be more than happy with having each and every one of their services in the cloud. But once you move upscale, some customers, whether it's for technical challenges, whether it's for business reasons, for legal reasons, whether it's technical or business, there's a lot of times they'll need to keep some of the tools, some of the workloads, some of the software internally, and then and if you're going to provide a cloud solution, you need to fully integrate with those. And we've been able to show, and a number of examples where we've fully integrated with our hosted cloud solution with part of the workloads from the customers on-prem, and also integrated with other public clouds that are available. So that was also part of the reason I believe we won the award. And also, as you know, we were the first worldwide to launch Exchange 2013. So that was proof that we were, pretty quick to make, the latest versions available to end customers.
It's interesting that, and I sincerely mean this. From our perspective, we've seen you guys as #1 from the beginning of our relationship. So, which I think we've been working together now for going on 3 years, I think.
Oh yeah.
And maybe even a little longer than that. And I would echo absolutely the key things that we recognized out of the gate were certainly the focus around and consistent execution from a customer service point of view. The integration, absolutely, which yielded a solution that we felt not only worked down in the lower ranges of customer segmentation, but certainly scaled well up into the enterprise space, which was important for us, as well as the focus on innovation and the ability to lead in the market, which was also important to us on behalf of where we were going and being able to take our customers there. So that's certainly the case. Maybe, Brian, just kind of shift over. So we had a question before the session to clarify a bit what our packages are. So when we talk about hosted Exchange, I think we touched on SharePoint, but maybe let's focus mainly on hosted Exchange. Take just a quick kind of what are the packages, how have we structured them, and just so we can make sure we're answering that question.
Absolutely. On your screen, you should see the slide there, and this is publicly available or viewable, if you will, from the Avnet Cloud Ready website. If you drill down into the productivity suite. But what we did is we looked at what we saw from the market, and we like the basic, select, standard, and enterprise type of an approach, but also within the service, there's lots of features. And what we wanted to do is have a basic type mailbox, as you can see on the left there, the basic. But what I wanted to point out, the fact that this is on the Cloud Ready website, and that the Learn More button there that you see below really takes you into a comparison of the features within each of the packages. And you can see by the price points, they increase in functionality as you go to the right, meaning Select, for instance, has all the features of Basic, but it has a few more items. What we're trying to do in these packages is not only address the email concerns, but also Matthew pointed out earlier that a lot of users want to back up different pieces of their folders on their laptop. And there's functionality within these packages to do that. Users also want to do some of that collaboration that we shared around SharePoint, or also around what we call public folders. So as you move to the right, these functionality features are added to the package. And because we've bundled them, if you will, the price point is very attractive rather than adding that functionality as a separate line item, if you will. So I'm not showing it here, but these are some of the differentiating bullets within each of these packages. And if you go to the website, you can see it in more detail. So we talked about security, and we talked about where Microsoft's going and such. These are definitely address the security elements that folks are concerned about as far as access to the data and things like that.
Maybe touch on the concept of mix and match, and some of the competition out there is less flexible. I think comment on that around the packages within a customer environment.
Absolutely. The biggest question that we get is, do all my users have to get the basic package, if you will? This price that you're seeing here on the webinar is the price per user. So if they want 2 users, that would be the price. If they wanted 300 users, that would be the price. The mix and match piece is that you could have half of your users on Basic and then the other half on Select, you might say, or on Enterprise. You can mix and match them in any way that you want, and this is easily done within the portal, the control panel, if you will. And the other big question that we get is migration. So folks want to know, how do I migrate? And we use the latest tools, if you will, where we can migrate a client that might be on Gmail, they might be on Exchange 2007. We use these tools to migrate, and what's more important is that we work very closely with the client to create a plan for cutover to make sure that the user experience from a profile on their laptop all the way to the email functioning is very seamless and very white glove.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, if I may add about the migration is, it may sound very easy at first, and that not that much of an important issue, but I need to underline, exactly like Brian said, it's one of the most critical and crucial point for any potential customer. They want a seamless migration. it is crucial for them. And I believe all packages include migration services. Working with Avnet, we have dedicated teams that all they do day in and day out is migration. They've migrated hundreds of customers a month. They've seen pretty much all of the platforms. Whether it's obviously Gmail, older Exchange platforms, but GroupWise, Lotus, SunMail, and it's really I think one of the number one differentiator that migration services include as part of these packages.
Yeah, great point, Matt. When you look at some of the competitive services out there, and not only obviously have we included that, but I would say that these are, for want of not defining it per se, but these are high touch engagements. We're not just kicking some tools over the fence and saying, hey guys, have fun.
No.
We really do customers migrate into the environment, and the combination of those two things are extremely differentiated, to your point, Matt and Brian, from what we're seeing out there.
Yeah, because it's not only as if we've developed the tools and making those available. Yes, of course, we have invested heavily over the years in having the best tools, the top, making sure that all the data is migrated and so on. So yes, we do have a very extensive set of tools to migrate customers, but there are actual humans working with the end customers, helping them, planning the migration, making sure that it's been done correctly, and so on and so forth. So yes, it's more, it's not a passive service. It is a high touch service that's available.
I'm just looking at the time. We don't have a lot of time left, but I think we have enough time to kind of tackle one more topic. Earlier, Matt, you had touched on 2013 and being first to market. Maybe lay out a few comments around what 2013 is bringing from a cloud service point of view, because I know we've talked a lot about a lot of the benefits are around the back office, and how to more seamlessly, serve up some of the capability in Exchange and Outlook. But from an Exchange or Outlook, I should say, point of view, and from a SharePoint perspective, what are some of the benefits that you're seeing in the new functionality?
So, look, to be brutally honest, from a pure Exchange standpoint, from a pure client perspective, 2013 versus 2010, there are a few differences, but the main ones were really on the back end. And if you ask any user, that's you move him from 2010 to 2013. There's always modifications on the UI and so on, but really it's more on the back end. Outlook Web Access is very different, in terms of UI once again, but in terms of functionalities, there's not that much differences. On SharePoint, however, there is a lot, and I don't want to repeat myself, but the suite of SharePoint 2013 is a major upgrade on the social experience. So, like I said earlier, yes, they've modernized the UI, user experience is superior, but they've really, I believe, took it up a few notch in terms of the social experience for the end customers.
I know that Microsoft operates in, obviously, license cycles, and 2013 is and that intersects with things like software assurance, and so that there are sometimes drivers and compelling events for customers around when should I upgrade. Is now the right time to move to the cloud, given I need to do something? 2013 came out, but I'm still on 2007, so I guess I really do need to do something now. Do you think, are you seeing, we're definitely seeing sort of we're in the middle of another, cycle or wave of adoption that is more accelerated than it usually is. Are you seeing that, and do you feel there are ties, specifically to customers being at that, decision point again?
Yeah. So it really varies from customer to customer, but with the Exchange 2003 end of life, clearly a lot of customers will look at upgrading their internal versions to a newer one, namely the 2013 version. And I think that's the perfect time to evaluate whether to move to the cloud or not. And you look at any research that's available out there, the 95% of the case, the conclusion of those researches is that the number one service that businesses tend to move to the cloud is email and productivity. So yes, we are seeing, as organizations have to upgrade, whether the product is end of life, either licenses are up for renewal, it is the perfect time to evaluate whether moving to the cloud makes sense for them. So there is a huge opportunity to grab some market share over the next few years.
Awesome, thanks, Matt. I'm just looking at the time here, and I think the one area we didn't have a chance to get into, and we won't today, but it could be an interesting topic, is just around where Link is heading and how it's integrated into sort of the unified communications strategy of Microsoft. But we'll kind of save that one. If any of you have questions around that topic, though, feel free to lob those into us, and we'd be happy to respond to any questions that you have that come in on that front. I think with that, we'll wrap things up. So first of all, stay tuned on avnetcloudready.com for the upcoming sessions. We're doing these once a month, and you'll see shortly the next session guest speaker, and we'll probably be laying that out in a 3-month cycle going forward, so you can plan more upfront in terms of what sessions you want to jump in on. With that, Matt, seriously, thanks very much for taking the time to join. Really appreciate your perspective, knowledge, and insights around what you're seeing and how SherWeb plays into that.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciated the invite a lot.
Awesome. And also, Brian, thanks very much to you for your perspectives and sharing around what we're doing with the packages, specifically around SherWeb. So with that, to everyone on the phone, again, we appreciate your joining, and look forward to the next session, and have a great day and a great weekend. Thanks, everyone.